Hey guys, welcome back. So today I got a brand new product I want to show you guys. It's a product that a lot of you Tavor owners have been waiting for. Matter of fact, if you went to SHOT Show this last year, you had a chance to play with the prototype. And what am I talking about? The new Geissele Super Sabra trigger pack for the Tavor rifle. Yes, folks, this is not vaporware. It's real. I'm holding a production sample. This is not a prototype. This is what they're going to look like. You can't order it today. You will be able to order it here very, very soon, though. I can't give you a release date just yet, but stay tuned to the channel and to the blog, thebangswitch.com, and I will break that news when it breaks. So you're almost there, folks. If you're waiting for this trigger, it's going to happen here very, very soon. So I just got the trigger this week. I've had about 200 rounds through it or so yesterday. I'm going to put a couple hundred more rounds through it here today. I can't really give you guys a long-term review. I just want to tell you guys that it's actually out there and available on the market, or will soon be. I mean, we're talking about just a few days now. We're not talking about a few weeks or a few months. It replaces the standard OEM trigger, which I'm holding here. As you can see, the profile is very similar. Has a very similar profile, and what I can tell you so far, based upon my somewhat limited experience with it, just one range trip so far, is that this trigger is absolutely phenomenal. It is everything I was hoping it was going to be. Now, if you guys played with the prototype at SHOT Show, some of you guys have said, well, it was okay, it just wasn't great. It was a prototype, and I know that there's been several prototypes since that prototype. As a matter of fact, I had a chance to play with one of them at the Big 3 event, which is a gun writers event that's held once a year. And that was just a few months ago, actually more than a few months ago. It was a couple months after SHOT Show. And even then, the trigger was vastly improved. We had a chance to play with it for about 3 days. IWI was there and Geissele was there. And you probably remember seeing me post some stuff on social media about that. Yeah, and so that trigger was greatly improved. And this thing is absolutely phenomenal. And that's what I want to show you here this afternoon. I'm going to probably leave this. Well, I'm not probably. I am going to leave this in one of my Tavors. I have 2 of them. And I'm going to compare it to some of the other triggers that are on the market, like the TAV-D and also the Timony. Timony, of course, as you guys probably know, had a bit of a problem with their triggers when they first released them. I have another one en route that's supposed to fix some of the problems with the early triggers. I hope that's in fact the case, but I'll report more on that later. So today we're talking about Geissele. Let's take a closer look. Let's take a look at how you would put the new trigger system in your Tavor rifle. Now, the Tavor is a very modular rifle. A lot of the stuff that you need to do to regularly maintain it can be accomplished with just the tip of a bullet, and it's just a 5.56 round. You can push out all your pins with the tip of that bullet. First thing I want to do, of course, is make sure that your weapon's clear, and then you can remove your trigger pack from the rifle. 2 pins right here. You just pop those out with the tip of a bullet. Pull the captive pins free. Pull this little hinge down, this little door, and your trigger pack just drops right out of the bottom of the rifle. To insert the new trigger, you just reverse the process. You take your brand new Geissele Super Sabra, pull this little trap door up, stick it back in the rifle, push your pins across, quick function check, an absolutely magical trigger. So obviously there are some differences between the Geissele trigger pack and the OEM trigger pack, which I have here. The OEM is made out of polymer. This housing is all polymer, but all the internal components are steel. Now, I do have my secondary spring here, return spring, removed from this one, so this one has about a 7-pound trigger pull, and this has worked fine for me. You can see inside of it, the trigger's extremely cruddy. I rarely clean this gun, never really, and it's been running just fine without that spring. But so this is my OEM trigger pack. Polymer housing, all metal trigger components. Now you'll also notice that when I release the sear, I'm pulling on this bar to release the hammer. And that's one of the benefits just in general of the Tavor trigger, the fact that it pulls versus pushing. It makes for a much nicer trigger pull. Also the fact that just out of the box, the OEM triggers have all metal components, whereas the competition, like the Steyr AUG or the FS2000, have polymer sear surfaces and polymer trigger components, which makes for a very mushy feel. The Tavor has the advantage just right out of the box with its all metal trigger components and the fact that it pulls versus pushes on its sear. But so polymer housing and metal internal components. The Geissele, this is aluminum, hard coat anodized aluminum, and then all the trigger components on the inside are of course steel that are nitrite treated, so they're extremely durable and smooth. So they should have a very good service life, which, you know, only time will tell in that regard. Just to show that it's an aluminum housing, you can see the magnet here is not sticking to the housing, but of course it sticks to the hammer. Now, there's another unique feature that I haven't seen on any of the other Tavor triggers yet, is this little set screw. That set screw allows you to adjust the pull weight of the first stage, just the first stage. So if you want to adjust your trigger so that it's heavy all the way through or heavier all the way through, you can do that by turning the screw, or you can lighten it, but it's set at the factory to its lightest setting, which is 3.5 pounds, but you can increase that tension if you would like. You're not changing, though, the brake trigger pull weight. Now, another thing, and the reason why it takes so long, I'm going to go ahead and trip the sears on both these packs and show you that internally, or what I can, the differences. Now, this is the Geissele, and this is the OEM trigger pack here. You'll notice internally there are some differences. Okay? The geometry of the sears and the trigger, all that stuff has been changed. Geissele didn't just simply lighten the springs, they changed the geometry of the trigger components, giving it a mechanical advantage while maintaining, let me grab the Geissele, while maintaining that stiff spring. That's a heavy spring. Okay, but despite the fact it has a nice heavy hammer spring, meaning it gives you positive ignition, it still has that nice clean light trigger pull. So that's one of the reasons why it took them so long to develop it, I think, is they were just trying to get the sear surfaces and the mechanics of this all figured out where it's absolutely reliable. Another thing that they told me is that they worked very hard to minimize that trigger take up and how that trigger brake feels in the reset. So if you guys are wondering what took them so long, it takes a while to design something like this and make it work reliably in, you know, every Tavor that's out there on the market. And so far, this thing's worked 100% for me. Once you get your new trigger in the rifle, nothing changes from a functional standpoint. The manual of arms is exactly the same. You'll notice no difference in terms of how the safety works, nothing like that. It's a straight drop-in OEM replacement part. So I have the Geissele trigger in the Tavor. I'm going to go ahead and load it up and fire a few rounds and see how she feels. Wow, that trigger is phenomenal. It's hard to describe a trigger, but I'm going to do my best. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to pull my glasses off here for a second because it is hot and muggy today. But that trigger is nothing short of amazing. Now, when you first get a Tavor and you fire it, most people are going to complain about the heavy 12-pound trigger pull, and that's what I measured at least one of my Tavor triggers as being 12 pounds, and that's heavy. Now, for a military service rifle, that's not bad. The reason the military likes heavier triggers is because when you have grunts running around, and not all grunts are equally trained and not all of them are experts with their weapons, when they're running around, they're kind of nervous, they put their finger on the trigger, something spooks them, adrenaline kicks in, a 12-pound trigger isn't all that hard to pull by accident. So that's why the military likes heavy triggers. A lot of people actually gave the Tavor a hard time saying its trigger pull was unusually heavy, and that's not true. If you ever owned an HK91, its trigger was long and heavy. FALs, horribly heavy triggers. So the Tavor is really not unique in that, but a lot of people don't like it, and it does make accuracy shooting quite a bit more challenging, so having a nice light trigger helps. Now this trigger pull still has, drop this magazine out here really quick. This trigger pull still has some take up in it. So when I put my finger on the trigger, as I start to pull, there's almost immediate resistance, okay? And then that's the first stage. And as it comes back, you'll feel it hit that second stage, and right there it's going to break. No over travel, none. It stops the minute it fires, which is different than the factory trigger. Reset it, so you have a light, about 3 pounds, take up, right there, and then break. No over travel. That's pretty impressive. Also, it feels to me as though the trigger pull breaks just a little bit sooner than it does on the OEM trigger, meaning the trigger doesn't travel quite as far back before break. The reset, you can hear it. Very positive reset. Feels really good on the trigger finger. This is a simply amazing trigger. And as you can see in that last string that I just fired, I can get this gun rocking and rolling really fast. It's so light and easy to pull that trigger that, man, you can get this thing going really, really fast and simulate full auto fire if for whatever reason you want to. You don't really need a bump fire stock to do that with this rifle with a light trigger in it like this Geissele. So let's see what the trigger pull weight is of the Geissele trigger system. Go ahead and charge the rifle here, make sure it's on fire. Set my Lyman digital scale to 0 here really quick. £5. Do one more. Pretty consistent, another £5. And do another one, just to get an average here. So £5 again. So it definitely makes the trigger pull just right at £5, which is really, really nice and about as light as I want to go on a rifle I would use for defensive purposes. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed taking an exclusive first look at the new Geissele Super Sabra trigger for the Tavor. These triggers will be available very soon. I can't give you guys a release date just yet, but stay tuned to the bangswitch.com. That's our blog. I'll put a link in the description below, and we'll be sure to let you guys know when that release date is. But again, it's coming up here very soon. Also look forward to a full written review of the new Geissele Super Sabra trigger over there as well. So at $350, which is the retail price for the trigger system, do I think it's worth it? Abso-frickin-lutely. If you guys have a Tavor, you need to do yourself justice and your rifle justice and get one of these triggers for it. It's just absolutely incredible. It totally changes the way the rifle shoots, and for me, it really makes it that much more pleasurable to shoot. Now, a lot of you guys have also asked me if I'll be comparing this trigger system to others that are available on the market, and the answer to that question is yes. Stay tuned for that video. I'm going to take the rifles out, take them out to the long range, pop in the different triggers, and talk a little bit more in depth about the features and the benefits of each of the trigger systems that are currently available. If you guys have any questions about anything you've seen in this video, you can ask those questions on our Facebook page. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/military arms. Also, please swing by and check us out on the Bang Switch. And I also invite you to come by and check out coppercustom.com. Again, everybody, thanks for watching. We'll talk to you guys soon.
I mean, the ergonomics are good. Grip's good. I like the balance because it keeps all the weight. All the weight feels like it's right over your lead hand. And I would have thought that a bullpup would shoot kind of weird from a rest, but it, you know, from a rested position, like you were in prone behind a knapsack or something like that. But it actually feels really good. And the recoil is very different. It doesn't feel like recoil, it feels like more of a push. I definitely like the Geissele trigger. There's zero creep, and once you get past the take up on the 2-stage, you have such a crisp let off that, and then when you get the reset, there's almost no creep on the reset. It just lets you ring, ring, ring.